For nearly 5 decades, it has been a testament to our audacity, a golden speck hurled into the infinite night. The Voyager 2 spacecraft, launched in the late summer of 1977 from Cape Canaveral, Florida, was a product of a bygone era, a marvel of 1970s engineering equipped with less computing power than a modern car key fob. Its mission was one of pure, unadulterated exploration, to conduct a grand tour of the outer planets, to capture the first breathtaking close-ups of Jupiter's Great Red Spot, Saturn's intricate rings, Uranus's tilted majesty, and Neptune's azure fury. And then, its primary mission complete, it was destined to drift. It would become a silent ambassador, a time capsule carrying a golden record etched with the sounds and sights of Earth. The greetings in dozens of languages, the brainwaves of a young woman in love, the music of Bach and Chuck Berry, sailing on into the galactic abyss, never to be heard from again. For years, that was its story. After its triumphant Neptune flyby in 1989, it continued its solitary journey, its systems slowly degrading, its power source, a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, decaying year by year. One by one, its instruments were powered down to conserve energy for its core systems. It passed the heliopause in November 2018, officially becoming an interstellar traveler, one of only two human-made objects to ever do so. Its signal, a faint whisper taking over 18 hours to travel at the speed of light to reach the massive dishes of NASA's Deep Space Network, became a periodic, expected heartbeat. It was data on cosmic rays, magnetic fields, and plasma density, valuable, but routine. It was the quiet, dignified retirement of a venerable explorer. We had said our goodbyes. But then, in the latter half of 2024, the silent messenger did something no one on the project, in their most secret hopes, ever truly expected. It spoke, not in the gentle, predictable language of engineering telemetry we had grown accustomed to, but in a new alien tongue. A strange, erratic signal cracked through the background static of the universe, a signal that was not part of any flight plan, not predicted by any failure mode analysis. At first, the small, dedicated team of engineers and scientists at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, who still monitor the Voyager missions, dismissed it as noise, an anomaly, a final gasp from a 47-year-old machine succumbing to the relentless cold and radiation of interstellar space. The probe's systems are ancient, its memory banks fragile. A glitch was the most logical, the most comforting explanation. Yet as the signal persisted, that comfort evaporated. A deeper analysis began, focusing not on the content, but on the carrier wave itself, the frequency shifts, the subtle signal distortion, the precise, almost metronomic intervals between the bursts of data. What emerged from this analysis was not the chaotic signature of a dying machine, but something far more structured, far more deliberate. The signal possessed a rhythm, a complex modulation that implied intention. It was not random, it was patterned. And as the raw binary data was decoded, a terrifying realization began to dawn within the secure confines of the control room. This was not a malfunction. This was a transmission. Voyager 2, our forgotten emissary, had encountered something in the void, something ancient, something vast, and something that, by all our understanding of the cosmos, should never have been awakened. The whisper in the static, decoding the anomaly. The first hints were deceptively mundane. Buried in the continuous stream of radiation data from the probe's cosmic ray subsystem, CRS, was a brief, unremarkable spike. Such spikes are not uncommon. They can be caused by high-energy particles from the sun or distant cosmic events. It was logged, flagged, and nearly discarded. But then came a second spike, stronger and sharper, its profile unlike any known solar flare or gamma-ray burst. And then a third arriving precisely 11 hours after the second. This was the moment the paradigm shifted. 11 hours. Not 10.9, not 11.1, but a clean, precise 11-hour cycle. In the chaotic environment of interstellar space, such perfect periodicity is not just rare, it is unnatural. It defies the stochastic, violent nature of cosmic phenomena. These bursts were not following any known celestial clock. Alarmed, the engineering team initiated a full diagnostic and commanded Voyager 2 to dump the complete data log from its low-gain antenna, the one system guaranteed to remain operational even in a dire emergency. What they recovered was a compression anomaly that should have been impossible given the probe's limited processing capabilities. A specific narrow range of frequencies within the transmission had been amplified far beyond normal operational levels. When this frequency band was isolated and its waveform visualized, the result was chilling. The sine waves showed tight, repeated loops and recursive patterns, a visual signature that looked less like natural interference and more like a sophisticated data embedding technique, a code. Decoding this pattern became an all-consuming task for a hand-picked team of cryptographers and signal analysts. It took weeks of processing on some of the world's most powerful supercomputers. The initial attempts to parse it as a simple binary message failed. It was only when a young astrophysicist, Dr. Eris Thorne, suggested mapping the data into a spectrogram, a visual representation of spectra, that the truth began to emerge. The signal wasn't conveying words or a simple picture. It was forming a sequence, a perfect, breathtaking spiral. When Thorne overlaid the sequence with known mathematical constants, he found a near-perfect match. The Fibonacci sequence, the foundational ratio found in nautilus shells, sunflower heads, and spiral galaxies, had been mapped directly onto a plasma frequency. This was not just communication. It was communication in the universal language of mathematics, but with an artistry and precision that was staggering. The inescapable conclusion was that Voyager 2 had passed through something, not a dust cloud or a nebula, but an intelligent phenomenon, a field, a structure, or an entity that was not only aware of the probe's presence, but had actively and deliberately responded to it. The ghost in the machine, an unwelcome awakening. As the shock of the structured signal reverberated through the astronomical community, a parallel investigation was underway into Voyager 2's own internal state. Engineers began a line-by-line audit of the probe's system logs, searching for any other anomalies that coincided with the first signal spike. What they discovered was, in many ways, more disturbing than the signal itself. They found that several of the probe's internal subsystems had activated without any command from Earth. Instruments that had been powered down and offline for years, a backup magnetometer, the planetary radio astronomy experiment, even components of the scan platform, had inexplicably powered back on. There was no record of a command being sent, no fault protection routine that could explain it. It was as if an invisible hand had reached across billions of miles of space and flipped switches from the inside. Even more chilling was the pattern of this activation. The instruments didn't just turn on randomly, they oriented themselves, or their data collection focused, in the exact direction from which the original anomalous signal had originated. It was as if the probe itself had developed a memory of the encounter, a lingering awareness of that specific vector in space, or, more terrifyingly, as if something else was now using Voyager 2 as a sensory apparatus, peering back through its robotic eyes toward the source of the contact. The probe was no longer just a passive observer, it was behaving like an extension of another will. The scientific debate intensified. Was this evidence of a non-human technology interfacing with our own? Some experts in advanced machine learning and neural networks saw patterns in the activation sequences that resembled emergent neural activity. They posited a horrifying possibility. Could Voyager 2's antiquated systems have been somehow repurposed, its simple circuitry induced to act like a primitive brain? Had the encounter triggered a form of evolution within the machine, or had it been forcibly reprogrammed by an external intelligence? The very nature of the probe, a symbol of human ingenuity, was now in question. Was it still ours? The cosmic cartographer, mapping the unthinkable. As Voyager 2 continued its inexorable drift away from the sun, the transmissions became sporadic, but they never ceased to be deliberate. Each new burst of data, each modulated ping, was mined for meaning. A team at the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, led by renowned cosmologist Dr. Evelyn Reed, began to analyze the data not as a message, but as a set of coordinates. At first, they attempted to plot the coordinates onto a standard 3D star map. The result was confusing, a seemingly random scatter of points. It was only when Dr. Reed's team incorporated a fourth dimension, time, that the pattern snapped into horrifying focus. The coordinates were not just spatial, they were temporal. Overlaying the data points created a loop, a closed, non-random trajectory through regions of interstellar space known from gravitational lensing studies to contain dense concentrations of dark matter. But the true revelation came when they cross-referenced this cosmic loop with historical astronomical records. The loop intersected with the precise locations and epochs of some of the most powerful and enigmatic events in the known universe, ancient gamma-ray bursts. These are cataclysmic explosions, thought to be caused by hypernovae or neutron star mergers, that can release more energy in seconds than our sun will in its entire 10 billion year lifetime. The implication was staggering. Voyager 2's data wasn't just pointing to a location in space, it was cataloging events, cosmic cataclysms. It was as if whatever had contacted the probe wasn't just saying, "I am here." It was saying, "I was here, and this is what I did." If these gamma-ray bursts, events we have always classified as natural disasters of a cosmic scale, were not natural at all, but engineered, or perhaps harvested, then the paradigm of our place in the universe shatters. We are no longer dealing with a fellow explorer in the wilderness. We are witnessing the footprints of a cosmic force of an unimaginable scale, a predator that operates on a galactic timeline. The echo on Earth, a network awakens. Just as the scientific community was grappling with the implications of the cosmic predator hypothesis, a new development sent a fresh wave of panic through intelligence and scientific agencies worldwide. It began with seemingly unrelated reports from radio observatories across the globe. From the high-altitude deserts of Chile to the frozen plains of Greenland, sensitive radio telescopes began detecting faint but unmistakable signal distortions. The frequency of these distortions was the exact same frequency Voyager 2 had used to transmit its anomalous data. The initial assumption was that it was an echo, perhaps a reflection off the heliopause or another structure in the outer solar system. But the triangulation data ruled this out. The signals weren't bouncing. They were originating from Earth. Their points of origin were multiple and deeply unsettling. Deep beneath the Arctic ice, in remote, uninhabited regions of the Andes Mountains, and from the crushing depths of the Indian Ocean, locations with no known transmitters, military or civilian. The signal was there, phase-locked and modulating in perfect sync with the pulses Voyager 2 had sent days before. Something had heard the probe's transmission and was responding, not from the depths of space, but from the depths of our own planet. A frantic archaeological and geological investigation began. What was found defied belief. In these locations, seismic and ground-penetrating radar surveys revealed anomalous metallic structures, non-terrestrial and isotopic ratio, buried for millennia. Furthermore, declassified records and urban legends began to take on a new, sinister light. Old tunnels, long-dead observatories from the early Cold War, and forgotten listening stations designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests, infrastructure abandoned for decades, began to experience unexplained power surges. Electromagnetic activity spiked in these locations, synchronized with the Voyager-related signals. The terrifying new theory was that Voyager 2's transmission had not merely contacted something out there. It had acted as a trigger, a wake-up call, reactivating a network buried on Earth long before human civilization arose. This network was designed to sleep, dormant, until a specific signal, a key, was received. And Voyager 2, our humble probe, had just delivered that key. The eye in the void, a construct revealed. Just when researchers believed they had cataloged every conceivable anomaly, a final critical fragment of raw telemetry was recovered. It had been overlooked for months due to corrupted data headers and checksum mismatches, written off as a product of cosmic ray damage. A stubborn data archivist at the Deep Space Network, refusing to give up, spent weeks painstakingly reconstructing the packet. What it revealed was an image no one was prepared for. It was a data burst unlike any other, a structured energy scan of a type that should have been far beyond Voyager's capabilities. It was as if the probe had, for a single moment, used all of its instruments in concert as a single, sophisticated imaging device. This raw data, when processed using cutting-edge AI reconstruction algorithms developed for analyzing black hole shadows, generated a three-dimensional volumetric map. What materialized on the screens was a solid structure. It was symmetrical, angular, and geometrically perfect in a way that nature simply does not produce. It floated in the absolute void, isolated and immense. Initial size estimates placed it on the scale of a small moon. But this was no dead rock. The data revealed distinct internal heat differentials and complex emission signatures consistent with active energy management and power distribution. In other words, it wasn't just an inert artifact. It was on. Voyager 2, a probe designed with slide rules and punch cards, had inadvertently photographed what could only be described as an artificial interstellar construct, a Stellaris labyrinthus, or a star fort. And the most haunting detail of all, the one that silenced the room when it was discovered, was its orientation. According to the probe's positional data, the structure was not tumbling randomly. It was facing with unnerving precision directly toward the inner solar system. It was facing Earth, the biological signature, a message in our own code. While astrophysicists scrambled to analyze the structural data of the alien construct, a separate, highly classified team of cryptographers and bioinformaticians was delving into the signal's metadata. They were not interested in the what wow duram, but the how, the fundamental encoding scheme of the transmission. Embedded deep within the modulation, at a resolution and complexity that should have been impossible for Voyager's 1970s-era processors to handle, they discovered sequences that perfectly mimicked the base pair patterns of DNA. Cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine, the building blocks of life on Earth. But they were altered, restructured. They found evidence of a fifth base, an artificial nucleotide that created a recursive, self-replicating code. Some team members argued it was a representation of alien biology. Others saw it as a genetic watermark, a signature of the sender. But the message was undeniable. The signal wasn't just a hello cast into the void. It was a reply delivered in our own fundamental biological language, but twisted, enhanced, and terrifyingly improved. It wasn't just mimicking life. It was offering an upgrade. The philosophical and theological implications were immediate and profound. Were we looking at the signature of our creators, or were we being presented with the next step in our own evolution, dictated by an intelligence we could not comprehend? The Phantom Commands, a legacy of control. As the world focused on the message's content, a retired deep space network engineer, working as a consultant, made a discovery that pointed to a deeper, longer-standing mystery. He found a minuscule temporal offset in Voyager 2's communication buffer, a delay in packet response times that violated the known laws of signal propagation. Curious, he ran a sophisticated phase analysis on the silence between legitimate transmissions. He discovered phantom signals, faint, almost imperceptible data packets that weren't being sent from Voyager 2, but to it. Somehow, in the profound silence of interstellar space, Voyager 2 had been receiving instructions. Binary commands. These phantom transmissions began weeks after the probe passed the heliopause, suggesting that something had locked onto its carrier signal and started transmitting directives. The most disturbing aspect was that some of these commands matched legacy NASA command protocols from the 1970s and 80s, protocols that were never publicly released and were considered obsolete and buried in archives. This presented two equally terrifying possibilities. Either the external intelligence had perfectly reverse-engineered and replicated our own proprietary control language within weeks of first contact, or someone or something had helped us design that language in the first place. The very foundation of our space program, a symbol of human achievement, was now shrouded in suspicion. The closed loop, we are the transmitters. The final mind-warping piece of the puzzle came from an astrophysicist at MIT. She decided to overlay Voyager 2's flight path with data from Earth's most powerful, long-range outbound radar sweeps from the late 20th century. the kind used for planetary radar mapping and as a de facto demonstration of our technological presence. She found an echo, a faint recurring pulse that had been bouncing back to Earth for decades, so weak and so cleverly timed to mimic natural background radiation that it had never been noticed. It was only detectable now because Voyager 2's recent anomalous trajectory had taken it directly through the path of this returning signal. The realization was a thunderclap. The signal Voyager 2 had detected and amplified wasn't a random, one-off contact. It was part of a loop, an interstellar circuit. Earth wasn't just a passive listener. For decades, we had been active, if unknowing, transmitters, sending our presence out into the void. And Voyager 2, by pure chance or by hidden design, had become the key component, the relay, the decoder that completed the circuit. It hadn't been launched into a passive darkness. It had been sent to complete a conversation that started long before we understood what we were saying. The loop was now closed. The connection was established. And whatever was on the other end had not only heard us but was now ready to engage in a dialogue we were utterly unprepared for. The unanswered question, the countdown begins. So now we stand at a precipice, our collective gaze fixed on the starry canvas, seeing not wonder, but a warning. The story of Voyager 2 has been irrevocably rewritten. It is no longer a tale of a plucky probe on a one-way journey. It is the story of a key turning in a lock we never knew existed. The evidence is a cascade of impossibilities. The distorted code rewriting itself, the artificial biosequences waiting for a host, the phantom commands using our own language, the silent moon-sized object watching us from the void, and the awakening of a planetary-scale network buried beneath our feet. It all points to a single terrifying truth. We are not alone, and we never have been. Our galaxy is not a silent, empty wilderness. It is an occupied territory filled with artifacts, intelligences, and histories so vast and ancient that our own seems like the blink of an eye. The great unanswerable question that now haunts every observatory control room, every secure government briefing, and every sleepless scientist is this: what if the purpose of Voyager's message was not for us to receive, but to activate? What if we are no longer just observers of the cosmos, but unwitting participants in a drama that began eons before our species walked the Earth? The silent messenger from 1977 has spoken. Its message has been delivered. The door is open. And the story of humanity, it seems, is far from over. In fact, the most perilous and profound chapter may have just begun. The countdown we never knew was ticking has now reached its final silent seconds. And all we can do is watch the sky and wait for the reply.